Hello, everybody. How are we all doing? I'm Salsa Ketchup VR, and this is the VR link. And of course, we still don't have a gamer tag, but we do have 7 degrees of gaming on that side. That side. And we have Lincoln on this side. Hey, dude. Welcome, everybody who's already uncompetitive. Welcome to the channel. I know that you're over on Lincoln, so that's really cool. We've got Lincoln himself, we've got Vidids VR, we've got JD Max, the Game Cat, meow. We've got Tantrum, we've got Deej. So that is really cool that people are in here. We've also got people over on my Twitch channel, so we've got Skinny Seahorse over there, Lurix as well, so that is kind of cool. Right, so let's try and get this started on what we're gonna be talking about, or let's see what people have been playing. I think, Nat, do you want to go first?
Yeah, the only VR game that I've played this week is finally got round to playing Telefrag again. We were talking about this a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
That I was just playing it on the DualShock 4. Couldn't get it to work with the Move controllers.
Okay.
But they've updated it to use the aim controller.
Yep.
This time. Still very unimpressed by the game at the end of the day, unfortunately. I was actually just saying before the show started to Lincoln, I really, really wanted to like this game. I really did. I don't like to sort of like denigrate games and just say, oh, it's a poor game and everything. I really do want to go into these games and really want to like them. And I can see what the developer was trying to do with Telefrag, but they just, in my opinion, they failed.
Yeah, there's
God.
Sorry.
It's Lincoln's phone. Is that Lincoln's phone? Whose phone is that? I think it was Lincoln's.
Apologies, everyone. That was my son's mother attempting to call. I will have to get in touch with her at some point and let her know that I'm keeping my son one more night.
Okay. Right, so, Telefrag. Yeah, I have to agree, there's something on the game that I do find personally fun. I had a great time with GT playing that. I think as a one-on-one game, it can be fun, but I think they've missed some important elements in there.
They've missed a lot of important elements in that game. I mean, I only played it for about 45 minutes because after that I was just bored. But literally in the 45 minutes that I played, I didn't play against another human player. I only played against the bot, even though I left it open for a human player to come in and take over or actually play the game. The maps are too small. They really are. To be honest, I think they would have been much better off just doing a Quake or Unreal Tournament rip-off and doing that in VR rather. Like I say, I understand what they were trying to do, but in my opinion, they would have been just much better off just doing a basic Unreal Tournament or Quake rip-off and doing that in VR, because we don't have that in VR at all. A really fast-paced FPS game.
Not fast-paced.
And the one-on-one, I can forgive it on something like Farpoint, because I thought what they did with the one-on-one gameplay was so clever, and so unique that you didn't actually mind it was one-on-one. But that sort of game can't be one-on-one. It has to be sort of like a multiple level of players. It can't really be a one-on-one. Yeah, there will be fun to be had, but like I say, it's gonna get very boring very, very quickly. Like I say, I don't mean to knock the game. The one thing I will say, and I said this to you two guys again before the stream started, if any game is broken at the core, so like we discussed Bravo Team is broken at the core. There is nothing they can do to fix that game. It is completely broken. Telefrag isn't completely broken. The core is there, but they've got to do a lot of work to fix it. But the core's okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that we maybe pick on later with another conversation, or I think I would probably pick up with another game that we'll be talking about, because we won't be able to fail about talking about another certain game. But
Definitely.
we'll go on that. Lincoln, what have
Yes,
you
sir.
been playing?
I have yesterday I played Special Forces VR, and surprisingly, I played a lot of Dead and Buried 2. I know when that game first came out, didn't get very good reviews, but that game is deceptively fun. I have found myself playing that game quite a bit, and it's actually, I think the experience is better on the Oculus Quest due to the fact that there's no wires.
Okay. Well, we've got the other game here for you at the moment, which apparently has clicked to a different point in the game, and I was going to go for this part here. There's the beginning. No, you snapped around. There we go. So this is the Forces game. I'm sure everybody can appreciate the view that they're seeing at the moment.
It's a very nice view.
Which, of course, this is the sniper which broke the game for you.
Yes. If you use the sniper class, which is kind of distracting talking about it because of the cute character they inserted into the game. But when the game unlocked, and I tried to go through the different classes and try the different classes of the game, the game broke once I switched over to the sniper class, and I think it took me like the entire night trying to get out of the sniper class so the game would run right, because every time the game would boot up, it would immediately put me into the sniper class and it would start to freeze. And then you have all these images that would look like a kaleidoscope, and the game would crash, and then you would get a message saying that I didn't have enough video memory.
Yeah.
So I spent like all night trying to get out of the sniper class and go back to the rifleman class so the game would function properly. And then that's when I was finally able to stream this game. I think the game has a lot of potential, but the functionality of this game screams casual. I don't know if someone who's a hardcore Pavlov player or hardcore contractors, I don't know how they would feel about this game. I think they would probably still opt for Pavlov or contractors over this game, but I think this game might be catered to a casual or to someone who's playing a VR first-person shooter for the first time. A lot of the interactions that you would see in Pavlov or contractors isn't there.
They weren't there.
But I will say this: the positives that I can definitely say about this game is that it is by far the best-looking VR first-person shooter game that I've seen. If you look at the environment right there, even the red brick building is just so detailed. So I thought the graphics were amazing to be a first-person VR shooter. And the other thing that I liked about it is throwing grenades on that game was a little bit realistic. The hardcore games, is something about the timing of grenades. I can never time them right, and they always land at my feet, and I blow myself up. In the case of this one,
they got the throwing right. They got the throwing mechanics right, and everything else wrong.
As you just seen, I just saw it right there.
I saw it
in the video. So that grenade flew quite a distance. I am not able to throw a grenade like that in Pavlov and contractors. I think it's just bad timing on my part. I guess I just don't know how to throw a grenade. They simplified it in this game. Whereas Pavlov and contractors, you physically have to pull the pins out of grenades before you throw them. And once you pull that pin, you only got a few seconds to throw them. So maybe my timing's bad because I'm panicking after I pull that pin out.
Yeah, I do have to ask, because I mean, you've got the blinders on, the tunnel blinders. What about the options in this game? Did it have the comfort options to turn this stuff off? Because this is going to early access, or is in early access, should I say? And it apparently is going to be a lengthy early access. But what were the comfort options? Because I mean, personally, I don't have that blinder thing on any time that I'm broadcasting FPS, or do you have motion issues? I should ask that actually.
No, I don't have motion issues. I definitely have my VR legs on under me. In most games, I think a game like Rigs, I haven't played that in a while. That was one of the games that like gave me serious motion sickness. But as far as the option goes to turn off the blinders, I have not gone through the options yet. So I don't know if there's an option to turn off the blinders. I do plan on playing this game again later on today, so that's something I will check out when I get back into it.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing that was kind of weird, which I have seen happen on another game actually, is the whole sticking your hand to the end of the rifle thing when you move it close, and it feels like really janky. It's like, bleh.
Yeah, like you've seen it right there. In games like Pavlov and Contractors, you bring your hand near the front of the gun and then you pull the trigger to make your hand, actually grab the front of the gun.
The grab button type of thing.
I think that's one of the things that PlayStation has an advantage on with the PlayStation aim controller. It just feels so right.
Oh yeah. I mean, on the PC side, you've got things like Pro Tubes, which work wonders on this stuff. And you're saying earlier about snipers, which you're like sniper rifles don't work. But if you've got like something like a Pro Tube, then that's when it comes into play. Although we were saying about PSVR, but the PSVR has some tracking issues, and I've seen some sniper things. We've got Sniper Elite that's going to be coming to PSVR, which obviously is going to use the aim controller and heavily into this whole looking down sniper thing. I mean,
well, if they don't get the sniper part right in Sniper Elite VR, that game's dead, because that's all the game is. Yeah.
So I would have to agree. And there's been some games, we've talked about Bravo Team before in the past about the snipers rifles just don't work on Bravo Team. And I've noticed that other first-person shooter games don't make use of a scope. And games like even Farpoint, where you have what's supposed to be like an alien sniper rifle, there's no scope. You just have your reticle, and you look through there through the reticle. There's no scope to zoom in on.
Did you play what do you call it?
Arizona Sunshine's got a sniper rifle. That's got a scope.
And
does it work?
Yeah, I didn't have any issues with Arizona Sunshine.
Yeah,
I want to try it, but I don't want to spend the $40 for Arizona Sunshine. They seem hard. They seem, hell bent on keeping that $40 price tag.
It's been regularly sold.
Have you played D-Day?
No.
That's also got a sniper rifle in it, and that's like about $10 for the game. Its graphics aren't amazing because it's very basic graphics, but it's a hell of a fun game, especially for
the gameplay is fantastic in that game.
Yeah. Honor and Duty D-Day, hats off as well. It's a very small team that made it, so graphically it's not going to win any awards, but gameplay wise that game really does rock, and it does have a sniper rifle in there. I think he did end up adding a proper working sniper rifle later on. Initially he wasn't going to have one, and he did end up adding one at a later date that does work. So it's an interesting one, how weapons and stuff like that in VR work. But yeah, Sniper Elite's going to be an interesting one. So that was that. Anything else? I don't have another video of anything else that he was playing though. I know you said, what was the other game you said was playing?
That I played this weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Dead and Buried on the Oculus Rift and the Oculus Quest.
The Dead and Buried 2.
Yeah, Dead and Buried 2. And it's like you said, the graphics probably aren't going to win you over. The graphics are almost something that you would see on a smartphone. But the game is deceptively fun. I've been having a lot of fun with the game.
Yeah, and that's a cross-buy game as well. So if you buy it on your wired headset, it's also on your Quest as well.
Yeah, in my
So
case, it went the other way. I bought it on the Quest, and then I went through my Rift library, and it said free. Free. Hit the button and started downloading.
yeah,
So that's when I realized it was cross-buy.
yeah, because I mean that's one obviously you can play with your son as well.
Well, I don't know. We might have a situation there because both the Quest and my Rift S are on the same account. So I don't know if they're going to let same accounts play with each
Oh,
other.
I don't know
I
on
would have
that.
thought. I would have thought so.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
Actually,
But
that's how you. Yeah, Lincoln, you're giving us something to investigate in there. Try it.
yeah,
Yeah.
but my son, we haven't tried it yet because um, I don't know. I guess we're opposites. When he's on the Rift, I'm on the Quest. When I'm on the Quest, he's on the Rift.
Yeah.
Playing
Well, I say
different
try it,
games.
and you give us an answer next week. Let us know if it works.
Absolutely. And speaking of the Quest, to add a little tidbit in there, I was finally able to sideload Pavlov into the Quest, and
Okay.
my son is loving it.
Excellent, Gem. Right, I suppose move on to what I was playing. I was getting into my car games, so
Didn't you have something delivered to you? I'm sure I saw it where you said you got something delivered.
I had a handbrake delivered to me.
Okay.
What?
The handbrake for my driving. So, for those who don't know, Dirt Rally 2 VR came out for Oculus and on Steam VR. It dropped rather fast. It's not exactly the smoothest release of a patch ever. Basically, Oculus paid for a good amount of this to be made, but it seems that they also released the Steam at the same time. And basically, it's sort of like if I have the Oculus version, I have no sound. I also don't have all the DLC,
Okay.
but it runs really smooth and really good. Conversely, if you own the Steam version, the VR is free, but is through OpenVR only, and it's only been working nicely with the Vive.
Hey. Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, but is it an improvement over the over Dirt Rally
Well,
One though?
this is the problem. If it's running like it does on the on the Oculus store version, it is. Graphically, it's amazing and stuff like that. But I've got a bug where I can't hear any sound there, and I don't have the full content. If you've got any other headset apart from the Vive, it hasn't been working well on the Steam. And it's only available via OpenVR, so it's crippled and very, very uncomfortable to play. And most people want to play it via Steam because the Steam and the Oculus versions won't talk to each other. You can't play a league race with each other, and you can't play in Rallycross across platforms. Whereas if you're on Steam and you have a Vive, you can play with people who are non-reality, flat screen, or you can play with people who are in VR, but as long as they're not on the Oculus version, and you can log into RaceNet and play all your stuff there. So
It sounds like they've pushed it out too early, from what you're saying.
Yeah, it is that way, and it's also they haven't included the Oculus native support in the Steam version. So
That
that's
doesn't
why
make any sense.
it's got this horrible Yankee stuff going on. It's very disorientating. I played 5 hours of it yesterday trying to discover some of the bits on the Steam. that would play nicer and work out. There's also like a sort of like a frame drop that happens at a regular interval constantly, like there's something wrong in there. Now, there's a load of rumours going on about how to improve it. I did see something just before we launched on their forums that said, there's been a new beta of Steam VR that apparently fixes it. But I don't know yet. So, watch this space for this. It is one to watch. Once it's running smoothly and doing good, it's going to be awesome. But it is
so
an expensive
would you
game.
say it's a case, if you haven't purchased Dirt Rally 2 at the moment,
Yeah,
just to keep holding off
I would hold
until
off.
they do patch it?
Yeah, if you are a single player person and you know that you're not going to get into the leagues thing, and you're not going to play Rallycross with other people, you're just going to play the dedicated first-person player thing on that, then it's a case of, I would say, if you've got an Oculus, the Oculus Store version will work unless you get this sound problem that I have. In which case, if you have that sound problem, get the refund. Because it's a case of, if that's working with the sound and everything that you get through the Oculus version, oh my God, it's such a ride. It really is. It really is. But it's not ideal. It's not ideal launch.
Oh, that's a shame.
That's really unfortunate because I really wanted to try that game. Now I already didn't want to pay $60 for the game, but then to buy it solely for the VR aspect of the game, and then to find out that it's not working properly, that would be hugely disappointing.
Yeah, you've got to remember that the £60 version is the deluxe version. That's only available on Steam. The £40 version that doesn't have all the DLC, because all the DLC is not available on the Oculus Store version. Like I said, is how complicated does this get? Is like 40 quid. So it's a case of, you can pay your 40 quid, have a really good experience, but you don't get the DLC part, and you could have some networking issues later on if you do want to join leagues, etc., etc. Or you have the Steam version, but I do have to investigate this whole beta of Steam, and hopefully they will eventually pull it all together, but it's Codemasters here, so that could be a whoever knows.
Well, there's also the side point, because obviously we got a lot of people that got PlayStation VR, purchased Dirt Rally for PlayStation VR. The developers have actually come out. I think it was a day after the launch of the VR drop for Dirt Rally 2, and they've come out and said it's not under circumstances coming to PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
So anyone that has PlayStation VR that is thinking that this might be coming, and then maybe buy Dirt Rally 2, do not buy it, because it's not going to incorporate any VR functionality.
I might be hopeful.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. I might be hopeful once the PS5 releases. So if there's news when the PS5 releases, look for it then. But at the moment, no, it's a no-go for the PSVR.
Well, I think there will be more driving games for PS5. Whether that's people like Slightly Mad Studios with Project Cars, or Codemasters going back to Dirt Rally, I think you might see some of the games that are available for PS4 and PC, but the PC ones have VR functionality. You might find, because we've discussed that in the past as well, that we think that some developers will invest to put the VR functionality into their PS4 games that will work on a PS5 only.
Yeah, I'm hoping that'll be the case here. But as Tantrum just said there in chat, that Codemasters has just not shown any real interest in VR, which is really crazy to me. It's the same. I don't get it, because every other race sim based company out there has massively gone, yes, VR, we get it. We really so get it. And Codemasters have been very okay. We'll do this Dirt Rally 1 thing. Then they did the Dirt Rally for the PSVR, but apparently they're saying that somebody else actually built the VR part outside of Dirt Rally 1, that it wasn't Codemasters themselves that actually did the grunt work. I don't know about that as a background thing there. But
Well, Codemasters is a very weird company because in reality they are the car company.
yeah,
Because the majority of their games that they make now are car games, but where they will do something really good and really something brilliant, then they'll do something absolutely
atrocious.
inane and stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously, I think it is Codemasters that have got the Formula One license at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. They have
Now that should be a no-brainer to put even on PC. That should be a no-brainer to make Formula One,
but they refuse.
VR.
Yeah,
and they haven't done it.
A few years ago, when they had done Dirt Rally, just after they put out Dirt Rally PSVR, Red Bull, who was their major sponsor for the game, made a top 10 list of what they wanted to see in the game in the coming year. And I believe number 3 or 4 on that list was VR.
Yeah, so it would just make sense. But then they also did, I don't know, it's not VR related, but then they also did Onrush, which was pretty much 90% of the team that made MotorStorm. And all they had to do with Onrush is make MotorStorm for new consoles. That's all they had to do, and they'd have been onto a winner. And Onrush was a disaster. Like, there's no winning. How can you have a game where there's no winning? Where you first past the post don't matter.
I didn't play that. And it was also what do you call it? Drive Club. Loads of the team from Drive Club was on that as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those games, Drive Club or MotorStorm, makes a return on the PS5 when you in VR, when they have enough power to make this thing run properly.
Yeah, but the only concern I have about that, Lincoln, is who do they get to make it? Because Evolution is gone.
Yeah.
The people behind MotorStorm, the people behind Drive Club, they're gone. I mean, they're turning off the Drive Club servers. Is it March next year?
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure about Sony's commitment to driving VR. I mean, I think it's going to happen with Gran Turismo because Yamaguchi wants it to happen. Yeah. I don't think Sony really kind of have a choice in it. I think Yamaguchi's gone to Sony and said, listen, you kind of made me put VR into GT Sport and I couldn't do a lot with it. Well, guess what? I agree with you from last week, Salsa, that it is going to be Gran Turismo 7 that will launch on PS5 or at some point on PS5 anyway. And I think that's where he's going to turn around and say, listen, we're going to put in some really cool VR stuff. I think Gran Turismo is going to surprise a lot of people in its 7th iteration, especially with what it will offer in terms of VR functionality as well.
Yeah, I think Gran Turismo 7 is going to be the game that's going to make every publisher of a racing game say we have to put a VR mode into the game, because I don't know, like I'm really deep in the GT Sport, and when they have those FIA manufacturers tournaments and Nations Cups tournaments, I think we're going to see those tournaments in VR once the PS5 comes out. And that's just going to elevate things to the next level. And the way things sit right now, a lot of the hardcore racing fans, a lot of them tend to prefer VR over flat screen when it comes to racing it, because I think it gives you a huge advantage. Yep. If you're a person that's racing, if they were able to integrate VR racers and flat screen racers on the same race, I'm willing to bet the VR racers are going to win the majority of those races.
We do have that already with
Wipeout.
Project Cars.
Wipeout's available on PlayStation VR, and I can guarantee you'll get better times playing Wipeout in VR than you'll ever get playing Wipeout flat screen. Because you see the corners, you can judge the corners. You can't judge the corners. The only reason you might get a really fast time with Wipeout is because you know the track.
Yeah, it's
you have to learn it.
It is consistency. There was somebody, I've forgotten his name. He's another sim racer on YouTube, and basically he spent a few days doing a consistency check. So he's racing one particular car on one particular track, one in VR, one out of VR. And he was doing this over a space of a couple of days. And basically he was looking completely at consistency of times. Now, consistency-wise, in VR, he was at least a second faster per lap consistently. Yeah? That's not saying his best lap time. That's saying consistency lap time. And this was in race conditions. This wasn't just in hot lap conditions. This was race conditions. So he was running the same race spec over and over and over again and seeing what his average times were. And he consistently got 1 or more seconds, basically, faster, lap on lap, over the majority of the time. His fastest time at the end of when all's said and done was actually out of VR. So you can still get that competitive side, but the consistency was so much so that every single race he won, every single race he was in, he did far better as a total time in VR than he did on a flat screen. But
the thing I'd be interested to know on that is, did he do VR first and did he do flat second?
No, he mixed in between different points at the different days. So he had like a few sessions set up. So he'd do like a few hours of VR, then he's done a few hours of flat screen, then he's done a few hours of VR, then he's done a few hours of, and he's done that over the space of a few days. So it's not a case of, right, I've done one shot, I know the track in this part, I don't know that bit. He built up a volume of data to do consistency rather than the quick one. I've seen someone who's done the converse of that and just went, oh, well, I'll do a lap here in this and a lap here and that, and I'll go for the fastest lap time. And it's like, yeah, VR is great, it's great fun, but it's not going to give you any competitive edge. And I'm sort of like, but what about your consistency?
I get where 7 Degrees is coming from, because I've run some tracks in VR and turned in some excellent times, and then I would come back and run that same track the next day flat screen and flew right off the track because I didn't see the turn coming until the last second. And that is the horrible disadvantage racing flat screen. Unless you're if you use the cockpit view or the bumper view, you're not going to see the turn coming until you're right up on it.
Oh yeah.
If you use the chase angle, then you have a decent chance of seeing turns coming before they get there. But in VR cockpit view, you can see the turns, especially when I do GT Sport time trials. I can see the turns way before I get there, and it helps me be more aggressive going into the curves. So it's if I play flat screen, it's like I already got 1 foot riding the brake and ready to slam on the brake if the curve comes up suddenly out of nowhere. But when I run these tracks in VR, I am super aggressive because I can see these turns coming much further away.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna change our video in the background there at the moment to something else that I play as well in terms of driving, which I was playing this morning, which is Assetto Corsa Competizione, which they had an update this week as well. So they've gone from version, they've gone to version 1.0.7. Now, this is another game where the VR has had some issues. Before, when it was in early access, there was a 0.7 release where the VR was feeling actually good and stable. Then they released version 1 and it got messed up. And it has been a bit messed up ever since. So I was pleasantly surprised this morning when I go in and I go, it's not skipping around as much. And it looks really good. And the frame rate's quite stable. And it's working. And I've got a full race going on with 29 other cars on the track going for it. It was absolutely joyous for me. And, you know, this is one of the things where people are going on here as well with Gran Turismo 5 support and multiplayer races on PSVR 2. I think definitely, yes. And Assetto Corsa is a focused one as well. This is a different thing. So Gran Turismo, Project Cars, Assetto Corsa, they've all been very wide spectrum games. Even Sport is, you know, Gran Turismo Sport is quite a wide spectrum game in the amount of tracks it delivers and the number of cars that it delivers. This is a pure focus on the Blunt Pain GT series, and it's actually worth a look now, I think. But you do need a beast of a machine. You are going to need a beast of a machine to play it. But it is really, really gorgeous and really, really good to play. I was so pleasantly surprised just how good that came. And I think that if it's also got some things that are a little similar to Gran Turismo in it, certainly the looks of it, but the feeling of where the game mechanics, the actual driving mechanics, that's where this game excels. Because the sound in this game and the actual mechanics of the driving feel so good. And that's the other thing in VR. When you're in VR and you've got the wheel there and you've got the force feedback, it all adds up. It all adds up. And I know that's what we want, a lot of people wanted from Gran Turismo and so on and so forth there.
Well, the only way I see Gran Turismo Sport not getting any update on PS5 is if Gran Turismo 7 is a title that's going to launch within the launch window, within the first 6 months of PS5 coming out. That is the only way I see them not touching Gran Turismo Sport. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. If you're going to be waiting 2 years for Gran Turismo 7, and you know that Gran Turismo Sport is going to work on PS5, why wouldn't you upgrade it and have tell people, hey, guess what? If you get a PS5 and you've got Gran Turismo Sport, you've gone out and brought Gran Turismo Sport, you've wanted multiplayer VR, we can give you it on PS5. There's a patch for the PS5 that'll give you that. But like I say, if Gran Turismo 7 is due within the first 6 months of PS5's life, no, ain't going to be done. Because all their energies and all their focus will be on Gran Turismo 7. It won't be on Gran Turismo Sport.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree.
I think that game's done. And I think I don't know. I mean, if you were to put an update on GT Sport right around the time that PS5 is coming out to add VR multiplayer, you're gonna kind of separate the community.
Yeah, I don't no, you don't need to separate the community on that, but because playing them in together is the strong point. But I do kind of feel the same as what Nate's saying. That it, Nate's saying, sorry. It literally, I've got that feeling that it's going to be 7. They're going to go. Sport is done. The models they're building for Sport, the actual physical models of the game models, the cars, they will use them for 7, and they will. I still see them continuing to put cars into Gran Turismo Sport constantly and some tracks and stuff. But other than that, I think their models that they've done, the modelling work they've done for Gran Turismo Sport, is so top notch, is so high level, is so detailed that it will work out of the box for them for Gran Turismo 7 and delivering a high level of content right away, because they have done a good job with Sport. But the other things that they want to bring to the table hasn't worked out. I think that's where that's going to take over in a different way. Anyhow, enough of cars. I think we're going to move on to something else, maybe coming out this week. Shall we go big, or shall we go to a smaller one?
Go small first.
Let's go small. We did talk about this last week, and it's going to mix in, I think, because there's not much coming out apart from Quest games.
Quite a few, actually.
Quite a few Quest games, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. The only one I've got a trailer, though, for is Red Matter. Because that's coming out, it's quite cheap as well, isn't it? It's like 15.
Well, I don't think they've put a price on it yet. If you go into the Oculus store, whereas a lot of their other games have got prices ready for them. Like, for example, Pinball FX 2 VR is coming out this week as well.
Yeah.
That's got a price. That's $10.99, which is actually a pretty good price, I've got to admit.
What about Aspire 1?
Aspire 1?
We haven't got a date. I got to be honest. If they're going to launch it, I think it's most probably because we're not hearing anything, especially on Oculus Rift as well, because obviously it's launching on both Rift and Quest. If it's going to still come out August, I think it's going to be the last week of August. I think it's going to be the same. I think it's going to be the same week as when Control comes out for PS4. I've got a feeling, because we're not hearing a lot about it, it might have shifted to September.
Yeah,
which I haven't got a problem with. Listen, I've always been a big proponent. Release the game when it's right. Don't release it because you've put a date on it. Like obviously they said it's August, and don't get me wrong, I really want Aspire 1 big time. I'm a huge stealth fan. That's most probably. I would say I'm actually more excited for that than I am even No Man's Sky, because I'm a bigger stealth fan than I am an exploration fan. But if they turn around and say, you know what, we need a couple more months to actually polish it, fine. Because when I want the game, when it comes out, I want it to be as good as it can possibly be. I don't want it to be a disappointment and then go, oh shit, now I've got to wait for patches.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I can definitely agree with that.
If they still get it out August, then great, I'm going to be ecstatic. So, shit a brick.
As long as they do it right. As long as they do it right.
That's the main thing. Got to get it right.
I definitely, you don't want to end up with that situation where you're sort of like going, you had one job. You
fucked it up. You were only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
Visitors are saying, Red Matter's showing as $14.99 on Oculus Store. I'm not sure if
I can check
Quest,
that. Hold on.
Yeah, the Quest might not be showing up, but I believe from what I've heard elsewhere that it is going to still be the 15 quid on the Quest as well. I haven't heard any different on that.
Chris has popped along, just to let you guys know. He's on the chat.
Hey, GT. The boys. He had to mention the boys, didn't he?
The boys is awesome.
Oh, I'm trying to say what's up to gamer tag, and what's up, dude. Sorry about that.
Do
I didn't spell that very good. Sorry about that. Hey, how you doing, gamer tag?
How is the lobstering going? Are you unlobstered and now very tanned? Is the question. Are we going to, because last week I know that around this time he had oversunned and was a lobster.
Fair enough.
Now I'm expecting he is no longer gamertag, he is greatly tanned boy.
Time Stall's out next week as well for the Quest. Things.
There was something about Time Stall as well. Something that it pinged a memory in my memory of past. It was like a CD-ROM game, an encyclopedic CD-ROM game, Tour of the Galaxy, that actually had a very similar vessel onto it, the ones that's mentioned on Time Stall, because the Time Stall thing looks very much like a spacecraft version of the Titanic.
Oh wow!
And I kind of remember there being a CD-ROM exploratory thing that did the same thing, and it just pinged in my mind when I saw it, and I was sort of like, ugh. There's something resurrected from my past, and I just can't remember the name of it. And it's sort of like I'm sure that had a bot that was similar in it as well to the bot that is in that game. So I'm like, ooh, but yeah, that is absolutely nuts. Oh, Battle Wake. That's come. Is that next? Is Battle Wake as well coming out next week or not?
No,
No.
we've had the beta, but there's still no date or anything.
Yeah, I did try the beta,
Yeah.
and steering an actual pirate ship. That's a lot of work in that game to steer that ship. Because you turn the wheel, and then you have to grab the chains, would kind of work the anchors to try to be able to turn that ship on the dime. And those ships are pretty big, but I do like the aspect how you can ram another ship, and each captain of each ship has a special ability, and they do have a fully working Kraken. This does have a head as well as tentacles, and they got it right. When you have a small company, they can get a Kraken correct.
Yeah, they do have that game looking good. I was just saying, yes, Uncompetitive just pulled it out. It's Douglas Adams' Starship Titanic that I was thinking of.
Well, like I say, I mean, it's not everybody's obviously got PlayStation VR. Not everybody's got PC.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see Oculus offering. Because to be honest, obviously the game that we're going to be talking about soon, No Man's Sky, is going to dominate next week for PC and PS4 players. But it's really cool to see Oculus kind of realizing, well, you know what? There's going to be a lot of people that haven't got PlayStation VR that have got a Quest. There's going to be a lot of people that have got PC that haven't got a Quest. So it's nice to see that they've made sure that there's multiple games out for Quest users. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm going to buy any of the games this week, but something like Red Matter, I'm definitely going to buy. I didn't get it on PlayStation VR, and I honestly can't think why I didn't, because I kind of like puzzle games and exploration games and stuff like that. But I got to be honest, I'm kind of psyched that I'm going to get it on the Oculus Quest instead, and I'm really looking forward to that. It's just a case of when do I get it. And like I say, I don't think it's going to be next week, unfortunately. It's much probably going to be the week after, because I think the other game's going to monopolize my time.
The other game, what game would that be? What game would that be? I wonder what that game would be.
Go and play the video.
It's already playing.
I
it started as I said. What game would that be?
I've talked about this game numerous times, and I think this game coming up would have been a perfect opportunity for Sony to come out with a VR bundle of this game, or even put the PlayStation VR on sale, right? Leading up to the release of this VR update, because this is going to be huge.
It is.
Hello Games have actually done their part, because from what I understand, they've reduced the price of No Man's Sky across the board.
Yes, they have, and pretty much in every region.
And I think this is going to be the game where I think we talked about that last week, and I think it was it might have been you, Salsa, who might have mentioned that people were talking about VR players were going to meet on a certain planet, because I was wondering if VR players are going to click up, and kind of form their own clans and that kind of stuff.
There's more news on that as well, on how things are working. I don't know if you've seen any of Sean Murray's other interviews that have happened, like he's done a few interviews, because I mean, obviously after the first release of No Man's Sky, which had some big profile interviews, he became very, very shy
reclusive
of media.
definitely.
Yeah, that's the word. That's a better word than shy of media, but yeah. He's been talking, and one of the things he did say, which was very interesting in the IGN interview with him, and the more recent ones, because everybody knew about the VR was coming. Everybody knew there was something else, and they went, right, there's actually three things. So we hit on it last week that it's been said there are three things here. So you've got the first thing with No Man's Sky kind of like next, and adding that more multiplayer or different things to it. Then you have the VR, and then you had the thing number 3, which they didn't say really what number 3 really was. And this week he's kind of actually gone into it in more detail.
Yeah,
So,
update 2.0 they're calling it.
They are calling it Update 2.0. So essentially what they're saying is we're giving you, here's a first bit, here's the icing on the cake that we've always wanted to deliver, which is the VR, because it's super interesting to do. And from the standpoint of the VR aspects, because obviously we're VR guys, they've sort of like gone, right, each single one of these, because you've got flying as a thing, you've got driving as a thing, you've got first-person shooting as a thing, you've got underwater exploration as a thing, you've got building as a thing, you've got every single thing there. They've actually fully gone in, and when they went into it, they thought, we'll add it in, and it'll be okay. And they actually, as a team, said that what they found was they went in, they went, oh, okay. And they did actually redevelop everything around the proper aspect of being in VR. Like, there's heavy inventory management in this game. Really heavy inventory management in this game. Apparently, your entire inventory is actually on your watch, your wrist. Whenever you do that with your arm, you'll have your inventory there. Because I don't know if you know this, when you're playing the game and you go into your inventory, the game doesn't pause. It's still going on.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in VR, you just go like that. Something happens outside of that, you can immediately jump into action. So that's a big aspect for that deep dive stuff. And each craft that you drive or fly or whatever has its own way of doing stuff. And then you have, like we were saying, aspect number 3, the 2.0. Now, what Murray was on about is what they've noticed was lots of people have their own particular thing that they do within No Man's Sky. You have people who like to base build. You have people who like to explore. You have people who like to farm. You have people that like to, do the mix of these mission things or whatever else. So, what have they done? They've made it so that, number one, farming, you don't just farm vegetables, whatever. You can farm animals, and you can, milk them. You can race stuff. You can do this. For building, you can build in teams and stuff like that. There's programmability that can be added. Apparently, it's been hinted that someone in the team with the tools that are available built a version of Rocket's, the Rocket football thing. What was it? Rocket League stuff? The football game mixed with cars?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rocket League, yeah.
They built that inside of No Man's Sky.
That's interesting. I mean, there's actually a comment from Dej in the thing. He's going, "What's everyone in the chat doing? Continuing saves or starting fresh for the VR update?" I'll also add something into that. Is everyone going to jump in as a single player, or are they going to jump in multiplayer initially? because for me, I'm just going to start afresh from brand new, and I'm going to start initially as a single player. But if it lives up to the expectations, what I'm hoping for with No Man's Sky, and obviously that's always the big if, we don't know yet, but everything I'm hearing is it will live up to my expectations. Initially, I'll jump in single player, but then I will join into the Nexus, which is the multiplayer hub, later on. But initially, for the first few days, I just want to fart arse about, to be perfectly honest, just see what is out there, what I can do.
We're just going through it there. The Nexus thing is the other point on here is the social hub. So when you go, everybody is going to have access to the Nexus. And think of everybody play Destiny or not. So you're all aware of the tower. The Nexus is kind of like the tower equivalent in No Man's Sky, and you can go to the Nexus, and there's going to be I think they were saying about 30 odd people in there, 20 or 30
I think it's
people.
I believe it's 32 player.
There we go. So 32 people in the Nexus at a time. There will be NPCs or whatever that can give out different missions to collect and things like that. There'll be different other things to do, so there'll be like build missions and things like that, so you could end up just going, oh, I'm going to go get a build mission. People in the Nexus, you could randomly team up with people, end up building something, and then continue on with those people and build other stuff, you know, on the relationships you form there, which I think is a really good aspect of gaming in these terms of things, especially since it's going to be inside the game itself. And of course, as VR players, we're going to be able to kind of do the whole hey, I'm wondering how good they've got the body matching going on, and if we can do some dancing in there as well. That would be kind of awesome, because that would be an absolute bar. So Uncompetitors apparently saying that it's going to be 32 on PC, 16 on console.
Nice.
So Deej is definitely starting fresh. I'm kind of thinking about doing a mixed bag. I was going to try and quickly tomorrow possibly, and a little on Tuesday, depending on. We were also going to say about launch times as well. Like you're saying, I'm sort of like, is it going to launch in the typical time where Australia will get their hands on bits first, or is it going to be a UK launch time of midnight? Or
I don't think it will be. I mean, obviously, well, let's get Lincoln's thoughts about obviously starting fresh or and stuff, because we haven't heard from you, Lincoln. You need to speak up, man. Come on,
Sorry about that. I was definitely in tune to what you guys were saying. I've never played No Man's Sky before, so I'm definitely going in fresh. Yeah, so that's another reason why I haven't said too much about that. And then the thing about it is, I have the game on both PlayStation and PC, but I've made it a point to stay away from the game because I want to walk in fresh. Yeah. I don't want to play the game and start learning controls and environments and stuff, and then have to like readjust once the VR version of it comes out. Because if it weren't for the VR aspect of this game, I wouldn't have any interest in playing it. But the VR aspect of it opens up a whole new world.
The same.
What about multiplayer or single player?
What's that?
When you jump in, when you start the game, is it going to be single player or multiplayer that you go with?
Okay. All right. We had an echo there for a second. It looks like it's gone.
Single player or multiplayer?
I don't know where to start. I really don't. The only thing I can really tell you is that once I fire up that game, I'm looking for the options to switch on VR. And I might stand there and just look around and just be amazed for a second, because I did that with Farpoint. When I landed on that planet on Farpoint, I just stood around and looked at the planet before I started playing.
Jaw drop.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be that kind of moment.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's going to be a bigger moment, to be honest. But getting back to your point, Salsa, about the actual drop. Now, if it was a brand new game, I would say, yeah, it's going to launch in Australia at midnight, and then UK, and then America, and so on. I think because this is an update rather than a brand new game, I think it's going to be a worldwide launch, and so I see it being late for British users, even later for Australian users, unfortunately, and New Zealand. I know we've got a New Zealander in our chat.
Is
Taz
here? Is Taz
I think it's going to be like a 10, 11 o'clock in the morning for America, so that will most probably make it about 5 or 6 p.m. For us. But I think it's going to be. I think they're just going to put the update, and it's going to be a worldwide hit. And unfortunately, because they said it's the Wednesday, they've got to make sure that obviously the whole world is in the Wednesday. So I've seen that happen before with other updates, where you kind of hope that it's going to drop at midnight or whatever, and it doesn't. And then you keep waiting and waiting. But I see it being around about 5 or 6.
I'm not certain about this because of the more multiplayer aspect. And I think they should be expecting a big lot of people. So when you've had a big game, you quite often have multi-load regions so that people start being introduced into the server, so that server loading can actually take on the server loads gradually, rather than just smashing the servers all in one hit. So I'm kind of like half on whether it will be actually a zone by zone to actually accommodate for the server loading aspect that could go on with the multiplayer side of things. That's where I'm coming from it. But
with this update, I did a podcast earlier this morning. And this VR update, I'm calling it an invasion. The VR gamers are going to invade this game. Because I don't think this is going to be a situation where there's only going to be a couple of VR gamers. I think there's going to be
a lot.
I think it's going to be an entire continent of VR players invading this game. And
I think,
and because it's going to be. Because it's going to be crossplay with the other major headsets, with Vive and Oculus and PlayStation VR, Valve Index, all those major headsets. I went out on a limb to put a number on it and say that, I think we could very well get 500,000 VR players invading this game.
Yeah, well, I think Sean Murray's actually come out and said that with the people that actually own No Man's Sky, and obviously they've got the metrics, they can see them. I think they've said the amount of players that actually own No Man's Sky that have got it in their Steam accounts and got it on PlayStation VR and stuff, added to the people that are actually registered for a VR headset, this will become the #1 selling VR game when the update goes live.
Yeah.
Which, if you consider that you've got Beat Saber that has passed 1 million sales and is acknowledged as the biggest selling VR game. I mean, that's kind of crazy, actually. And obviously, we can talk about the new thing with Beat Saber. But Beat Saber passed 1 million sales. Oh, and by the way, congratulations to Blood and Truth, because it finally knocked Beat Saber off the #1 PlayStation VR charts after like 9 months. It was crazy. So kudos to London Studios and Blood and Truth. I'm sure the price reduction helped with that. But yeah, as I say, they come out and said that it's going to be the biggest selling VR game. So you've got to be looking, if Beat Saber sold 1 million, that this is going to be 1.2 to 1.5 million. I think, Lincoln, you're underestimating how many people in VR are going to be playing this game. I think day one it's going to be over 1 million. And to be honest, that's also another reason why I'm actually going to wait off on the multiplayer, because I just think the servers are going to be hit for shit. It doesn't matter what you do, unless you beta it, which they can't really do.
Nope.
There's no way you can estimate it. So I think they're going to try and judge, and based on people in Australia, it's going to be like 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, so they're most probably not going to be playing it. Few people in Britain and stuff like that, but I think they're going to be inundated. I think the servers are going to take a hit. Let's not give Hello Games any shit if they do. because, like I say, you can't judge it until it actually happens. But yeah, I say that's most probably why I'm going to give it a few days until the multiplayer. I hope there is no issues for the people that really do want to play it multiplayer, but I just don't see it not having an issue. Because even the biggest games in the world do.
Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right about how many people are gonna invade this game when the VR update goes live. I wanted to say a million, but since VR hasn't caught on with a lot of people, I figured it might be a little bit of resistance. Oh, it's not gonna be that.
Say it, man. Say it.
That kind of stuff. But I'm hoping, honestly, what I'm hoping for 1.5, even 2 million people to invade this game. But I was just being generous. I guess I was just being safe with the 500,000 guests. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think we're going to be looking at 1 million plus.
Yeah, I think so. Which would be an absolutely massive, massive achievement. And that's why I was also saying about the staggered release for servers, so they will onload region by region into servers, and that may be a control method for them. I was going to pull back to another point on this as well, and you said it as well earlier that you was going on about that you have bought this game because of the VR, and that's something that was the same for me with Skyrim. That I bought Skyrim because it was going VR. I got Skyrim VR because it was in VR. I never had any interest in any of Skyrim before it went VR, and I think the same aspect is going to play true for No Man's Sky. I mean, I bought No Man's Sky on the initial release. I played it for a bit, and then I just went, yeah, okay. And I haven't looked at any of the updates.
That was the thing. With me, I bought No Man's Sky day one, and as I said, unfortunately for me, it was like just within the week, it was just like, yeah, I think I've seen everything I want to see. It didn't live up to the expectations that Hello Games sold it on.
Yeah,
which was disappointing. I think that's why it got such a bad rap.
Yeah, it got slammed.
But the thing is, you have to give Hello Games so much credit, because they could have just abandoned the game. They could have just said, you know what,
but
this is the game that we got. We're an indie studio. We're a small team. As best we can do. But they haven't. They've knuckled down. Yeah. And the thing is, as well, that Sean Murray has also come out and said, this ain't the last update that we're getting for No Man's Sky, but there is going to be another massive update down the line at some point.
Which is crazy, especially they have sold it quite cheap, but the numbers they're getting up there, and VR is going to be one of those things that, again, I just see it as being such a potential seller for people who before didn't have an interest in No Man's Sky are going to go, hang on, I can do whatever I like in this. They've added this, the Beyond point, the third point, that third arm, the No Man's Sky 2.0 thing, has, reading the list of changes, they are not just adding the Nexus. It's not just adding the Nexus, it's adding huge amounts inside that Nexus. It's adding missions, it's adding build missions, it's adding farming missions, it's adding exploration missions, hunting missions, this, that, the other. There's just so much crazy stuff that you can do within that. It's
right, animals.
Insane.
There's no someone trying out the sound bar.
Turn it on.
Turn
the volume up.
It's absolutely amazing. I think it's going to be a mind-blowing one. Right. We could talk about No Man's Sky probably until it releases, to be fair.
Definitely. Well, let's be honest, there's going to be so much news, so much that we're going to be talking about next week. I think No Man's Sky is going to be the only topic next week. So,
yeah,
you talked about how some people, like me being one of them, there's a lot of games that I have no interest in, but if you were to throw those games at me in VR, yes, I would be interested in them. And I've said this on numerous occasions that it doesn't matter what your favorite game is. If you're dedicated to a franchise, I would probably say, a racing game. For somebody that's a hardcore racing fanatic, you want each iteration of your favorite racing game to be more immersive and more interactive. And it doesn't get any more interactive than in VR. So if you're somebody that's a hardcore racing fan, ultimately you want to come as close as you can to actually being in the seat of that race car. I can't afford to go to a racetrack and jump in a Formula One car and do a couple of laps, but VR gives me that. It brings me as close as I can to being on that track in a Formula One car. So with that being said, whatever your favorite game is, why wouldn't you want to try it in VR?
Yeah, and this encompasses a lot. As Tantrums has put, move aside Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous. It's No Man's Sky VR.
Absolutely, and I think this game is going to go on to be a hit for years to come, if the VR portion of it lives up.
Yeah, I think if everything that they're delivering just hits in right, especially the VR aspect adds to it in all the positive ways, it should just be an amazing thing. We're gonna move on a bit from there, because otherwise, like I say, we would probably be here talking about and speculating until we know the truth, and the truth is when it comes out this week. So the other one that we was going to look at is actually about location-based VR this week. So I was going to kind of talk about it there. I know there's some video in the background of me visiting some places there. This is the VR zone in Shinjuku in Tokyo, and also the Sega arcade just across from there in Shinjuku, which had the Star VR and what was it, John Wick 2. So that's on the background, but
yeah, I mean, the big thing, obviously, with location-based VR is the announcement that the Void, who do a lot of location-based VR in the States, have announced, I believe it's 25 new locations.
Wow.
They've only got something like
11. Because we'll be done here in about a half hour. Okay, we'll be done here in about a half hour.
Cool.
But yeah, it's all right. But yeah, like I say, I believe they're increasing their location-based experiences by 25. So it's quite a significant investment. Added to the fact you've got a lot of location-based VR experiences that are being specifically designed. So there is a Arizona Sunshine specific based location-based VR experience beyond what we've already got. What else you got? There's an Assassin's Creed thing. I'm trying to think of all the bloody things that are available. There's quite a few Ghostbusters. There's a Ghostbusters location-based VR experience, and obviously, Southsea, as you said, in Japan, you've got Mario Kart in VR.
You'll see that in
Bandai Namco experiences.
Yeah,
how big is that?
This one up here is the Gundam one, where they had the table, and they actually show me through the mission plan, and you can see them showing me through the thing, and you'll see my name is on the table there, so they're plotting out what I'm going to be doing as a part of the attack squad, as a vanguard, and things like that. And then I go into VR and I run their battle plan in a Gundam.
Wow, that is neat. We just had one of those places just turn up in Grand Rapids, but it's nothing like this. I think the place they have in Grand Rapids, you walk in and it's just a wide open space, and it's got a bunch of monitors on the wall with headsets hanging on the wall underneath the monitors. And I think most of the headsets, I think they are, I want to say they're Oculus Rift S headsets, either that or they're HTC Vives. I can't really remember. But yes, we did have one of those places open up here in Grand Rapids, and that's proof that VR is on the rise. And I think we have a very popular place here called Dave and Buster's. It is basically like a sports bar slash video game arcade, and they had what was like a Jurassic Park experience where you actually get inside one of the tour cars and put on a HTC Vive headset, and you're going through the park where a bunch of reptilians, dinosaurs and stuff like that are coming at you. So that is definitely cool. But wow, this place right here where you're at, oh my goodness, I would have loved to try to check that place out.
Oh yeah, it's an amazing type of thing. I mean, the stuff Lincoln's talking about, of course, is single location that's dedicated to.
It's fun, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
it is dedicated to one particular thing there, isn't it, Nat?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm just actually, I've just pulled up the article that I'd seen where they're saying about it, and I mean, this is what they're saying about what the user experience is for the Void. So it's a multi-user VR experience where players wear headsets and backpacks while physically walking around a stage, which is layered with the virtual reality experience. It contains real haptics like shaking floors, gusts of wind, and even smells are used to increase the immersion.
Yep.
So, I mean, they're really taking it up, and there's some of the things that they've said is there's current VR experiences from IP that we already know. Wreck-It Ralph and Star Wars are already out there. There's a Ghostbusters experience, a steampunk themed collaboration with Ninja Theory, and there's also more promised experiences coming from Marvel and Disney on the way as well. So, like I say, it's going to be really interesting, and I think this actually might be a really good step if it takes off. And it doesn't look like anything's closing down. It just looks like they're increasing it. But I think this actually might be a way to get non-VR players to experience VR in a location and then think, you know what, I'd actually like this at home. So if they can actually get some of these experiences, especially like the multiplayer experiences, to work in a home environment as well, I think that actually could also quite significantly increase the amount of people that actually partake in virtual reality.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Especially on the larger scale of things, there's sort of things. Sorry, there's me on Mario Kart there, in case you're wondering.
I want to play that.
It's brilliant. They've got it in London. They have it in London.
Okay.
You know, if I didn't have an interest in VR, I think a place like where you just visited right there, that would be enough to tip the scales for me to want to go over to VR. Because initially when I bought the PlayStation VR, I bought it day one and I gave it to my son for Christmas. When they were doing demonstrations at Best Buy, we were going there every Saturday and trying out the demonstrations. At the time, I was amazed by VR, but I wasn't interested in it. And it was just one of those things where I was on the verge of selling the PlayStation VR because my son wasn't using it and I had no interest in VR. And I decided to go ahead and I don't want $500 to go to waste. So let me give this thing a try. And eventually, the more I played it, and I was like, why wouldn't you want to be inside the game?
Oh yeah.
And it just took off from there.
I think one of the things about location-based, there's different location-based ones. There are ones that are small places, like you're saying, in a bar that only has like a few headsets or whatever. There's some others that are like the medium-sized one, where they are small businesses that have some of the different things. I think there's one that just opened in Stoke-on-Trent recently, but they do have like some of the locomotion things that you wouldn't normally buy for a house that are more commercialized, that you can't get for your home. And I think that's obviously another part of it. And then you've got the other side that Nate's saying here as well, which is the really, really big, large-scale stuff that gives you that whole other layer where you can't invest in this stuff. So you've got the haptics, the moving floors, you've got the ultra large spaces, you've got the types of headsets like the Star VR that I'm wearing there, that is a 220 FOV headset.
Oh, look at that! That John Wick experience. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it's.
I want to go there right
pretty
now.
cool. That one's pretty cool. But you also
And that's
have
a
the
Pimax
larger
headset?
ones. That's not a Pimax. That is a Star VR headset.
What kind of field of view did it have?
220.
Wow.
So that's seeing something. And he's probably laughing at me in the background, where I'm like, "What's up, Nat?"
No, I was just I put a little note on the chat, so I forgive you. Keep calling me Nate.
Oh, Nate. Oh, I keep on doing it. I'm terrible like that. It's okay. Sorry.
That's all right. I've been called a lot worse, so I don't mind. Makes me laugh.
It's one of these odd things as well. I also, when I'm talking normally, I switch between American pronunciations of things and English pronunciations of things, which is really, really weird. I guess it's one of the reasons why some people actually think that I'm from America or I'm stateside, and then other times it's like, no, I'm not, completely not. So, sorry, Nat.
That's right.
I keep on doing it. Damn. Okay, anyhow, your point on the big locations, though, it's something that a lot of people thought was rounding down a bit, and there's a ramp up, which is going to be encouraging. That's going to be encouraging.
Yeah, as I say, I mean, anything that increases VR is fantastic as far as I'm concerned. I mean, going back to the No Man's Sky, I've got a friend at work that has literally turned around and said that he is going to get PlayStation VR. I kind of tried to get him to buy PlayStation VR when obviously he had the price drops. I'm like, look, No Man's Sky VR is coming, because he kind of said, I'm going to get PlayStation VR when it comes. But I couldn't get him to save himself a load of money initially. He's just like, no, when No Man's Sky actually hits, then I'll invest. It's like, okay, fine.
Okay.
I'm trying to save your money, but if you don't want to save some money, it's
Yeah.
great experiences now. But I know he really likes No Man's Sky after the previous update, Next, I think it was called.
Yeah.
So I think that's why he's so excited about No Man's Sky in that. But yeah, like I say, if you can get more and more people invested in VR, and to be honest, that's always been VR's biggest problem. You can explain it until you're blue in the face, and people won't get it, because the only way you get VR is trying it. When you try VR, it clicks. You understand what it is, and you don't need to really explain it.
The only way to know what the Matrix is.
Definitely.
Indeed. But yeah, I love all this stuff. I definitely like all the larger scale stuff. I'm hoping that something will happen with the Quest as well, where they will have some larger space stuff again, where they did the thing at OC5 last year with Dead and Buried 2, where they actually had that as a large scale field and had a multiplayer thing happening with surroundings. Because I've done that at this place in Shinjuku as well with Ghost in the Shell game, where it was playing 2v2 in a large space. You can actually play up to 4 versus 4 in the Ghost in the Shell universe kind of thing, where it was a terrorist operation, and you have to stop them. And it was absolutely brilliant. But it's a good point to finish on. We had a couple of questions at the end here. Anyway, we'll round up with, I think, one of Deej's questions. Where is his questions gone? It's right here. So I think we'll go with we got the headset one. Good gaming headset. Anybody got any suggestions for £100 gaming headset, especially if you're looking at a PSVR player? Because
the only thing I've seen is, I mean, I haven't got them myself, but Astros headset seems to be getting good marks across the range that they have. Obviously, they go all the way up to like £300-400
Yeah.
from what I've seen them. Most probably go more than that, but they do have a range of cheaper headsets. But I've heard nothing but good things about those particular headsets. Like I say, I haven't tried it, so I wouldn't think is it. But you know, there's plenty of places that do review headsets specifically. I mean, to be honest, it's quite remarkable that you can put any headset into a PlayStation VR, and get the surround sound. I don't know what magic they've used to do it, but even little earbud headsets still give you an amazing experience in that.
It is interesting technology, actually, that you mentioned it. It's, you know, where you have the microphones that have the ears in them. Those binaural ear things. What the Sony PlayStation actually does is it simulates sound being hit into one of those microphones.
Right.
That's how that works.
Are you referring to like the PlayStation Gold headphones?
No, he was referring to you can the 3D sound you get, but that's how that works. Personally, I like SteelSeries ones, so these phone set that I've got here, I kind of like these. I think anything with a steel headband in them is a good first point of call, because I've had too many headsets end up broken, and if you're using the PSVR,
bring me my headset with the tape on them.
There we go.
The PlayStation headset.
Thank you. You're doing a perfect example for me there. So I had basically, my head is kind of a bit big, and I had the PlayStation, what the American side would call the PlayStation Golds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I think.
Thank you.
You
are you referring? You are referring to these ones right here?
Yeah, those are the type that I was referring to, where they have the hinge thing.
And yes. That's why they are taped. These things were $100, but they sound amazing.
Yeah, they do.
Now, right here, right above that hinge, they broke on both parts. And I even went as far as to wear this headband around my head to try to keep it, to try to keep the headset on my head. So I taped it. These ones, even though they're broken, they still work. They still sound amazing. And I'm not about to pay another $100 for some headsets when these ones still work.
The new versions of those, the platinum ones, whatever they're called, that was also done with the PlayStation side, are actually, I think, got a metal part on the top of them as well, and have because the fault on that was the hinge part. That the entire hinge is like a tiny bit of plastic, two tiny bit of plastic that are like 5 millimeters long at the outside, that actually hold the entire thing together, and you're like, what? But the newer ones, the newer ones don't have the hinge, but they have a metal band. Exactly.
That is something that I'd like to see happen next generation. Not only because with these gold headphones, they have an app, the companion app, where you can go and see which games have been specifically tuned for these headphones. And when you get a game that's been specifically tuned for these headphones, it sounds absolutely incredible. I mean, I've used sniper rifles with these headphones on, and so games like or even a game like The Last of Us 2 multiplayer. The shotguns have so much bass, you know, it almost feels like the gun kicked you in the chest because it's got so much bass to it. I hope they add this kind of support for VR next generation. Like a game like Firewall, I would love for a game like Firewall to be specifically tuned for these headsets.
Yeah.
The thing is with those headsets, because I'm the same. I've got those headsets as well, and you're right. If you know, like I remember downloading for Horizon Zero Dawn, and that just was absolutely unbelievable in those headsets.
Yeah.
The one thing I will give Sony a lot of credit for, because I mean, to be honest, that's what they're known for, is hardware, and the headsets are really good. But what I really do like is they do have basic, just generic inputs. So if you want an FPS, there is a generic FPS thing, and it works a lot better than just the standard setup. So you know, there's a role-playing game, and you know, there's a racing game and stuff like that. So even if you don't have a specifically tuned game, and the specifically tuned games are actually designed by the developers, you know, so it's like Guerrilla Games did the audio to work with the gold and platinum headsets for PlayStation. But even something like a basic FPS works really well, and something like Battlefield or something like that, it still gives you a really good range of sound, and as you say, makes the guns, you know, they have a real good kick to them. So I think they're very good headsets. I've seen a few people saying you know, some of the headsets are broken. Maybe it's because I don't mess around with the hinges and just leave the headsets completely open, or always stayed open. So, but I actually use those when I stream my Oculus Quest setup, which is obviously complicated to set up. But I actually use those headphones and the mic for my Oculus Quest streams. So and again, I don't have any issues with them. They're fantastic.
Ski, bring me those Turtle Beach headsets.
I was going to say about uncompetitive here, and another question here that came up from, I think, the location-based stuff that I was saying about how collisions, you know, player-to-player collisions are prevented in mobile multiplayer games.
Well, no, you could still have a collision if you've got somebody running, but the thing is, you would see the other person running.
Exactly.
So it would be no different if you were actually running at a real person, because you are actually running at a real person.
Exactly what I was going to say. It's the uncompetitive, the game types that I was talking about were in the same space, and they body track you. So you'd have trackers for your head. They can track where you are in real world, and they map that to your virtual location. So you see where other people really are in the real world in real time. So that's how they avoid collisions, because if you collide, then you collide in the real world as well.
Yeah.
I
mean, you were saying about Oculus Connect 5, where they showed Dead and Buried.
Yeah.
And they had the boxes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing I haven't seen just yet. And obviously, Oculus, that's one of the things they did set the Quest up to be, was a location-based device. And I think that's actually why we're going to see location-based experiences really increase, because I think they're going to use the Oculus Quest. It's cheap.
Yep.
It's going to cost a lot. It's going to be very cost effective, and yet it still offers a fantastic experience. So it might take a couple of years to get there, but I think you're going to see a lot more VR locations from newer companies. I mean, obviously, I mentioned the Void because they're most probably the biggest one in America.
Yeah.
But I think you'll see a lot more sort of like startups come out, and they'll buy Oculus Quest headsets. And I think Oculus will then either have separate games, or they'll have so the same games that we've got. Like I say, Arizona Sunshine is the one that always pops to mind, because the company behind that actually did make a location-based Arizona Sunshine game, which I'm sure is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. Right. I think that one's a good one. The other one that he was asking, which isn't really our question, would have gone to GT more, which was about Firewall.
Okay, what was the question?
I'm trying to find the window. Here we go. Question 2. How much did everyone unlock in Firewall Nightfall? And who is hyped for Firewall Dark Web update on Tuesday? So,
Well, I'll let you answer first, Elsa, because I think your answer is going to be the same as mine.
Yeah. So, first of all, when the whole Nightfall thing happened, I was like, kind of involved in other things, so 0. I think everybody else at the same time, there's a lot going on with Firewall at that time, and it was hard to get in, so it was like, yeah, no, I'll play the other new game that I've got my hands on. And this Tuesday, well, what's coming out the day after? I'm not putting time into something and then the next day gonna be in a completely different universe. So, not hyped at all, actually.
Yeah, I haven't played Firewall in a long time, so I didn't play the previous update. I'm like you, 0. I didn't even know there was a new update coming, to be honest. It's nothing against Firewall. I really enjoyed Firewall when I played it, but I've kind of moved on to other things. I think the problem with Firewall is and I said this a while ago, because it's only got one mode, and yes, it's a very good mode, but because it only has one mode, I get very bored very quickly in a single mode game. Like I literally went off the deep end when Overwatch came out. I was just like, oh my god, this is the greatest game. Within a month, I stopped playing it, and I haven't played it since. So literally within a month, played a shitload of Overwatch, and then didn't play anything else because it was a single mode game. And that's my issue with Firewall. And I've said this, if the developer had put a couple more modes in there, it would have got me playing, because it would have just mixed things up. Like I say, I'm not knocking Firewall, because it's a fantastic game. It really is. That single mode that it has is a fantastic mode. And if you can get 3 other players on your team that are really working well together, then you just literally dominate people. Because that is all about teamwork. The one thing I always noticed about Firewall is if you had a team that talked to each other, the other team could be better, but if they didn't talk to each other, they were dead.
Yeah.
It was as simple as that. So it was all about communication with that game. And a few of the times towards the time where I kind of let Firewall slip, I was getting into a lot of teams, and it just was, I was the only person talking, which can be fun. I love talking to myself quite regularly. It's one of the ways I get brilliant conversation. But when you're playing Firewall, it's not exactly the greatest game. So as I say, I mean, I keep promising myself to jump in, but to be honest, I think if I do jump in, I'll most probably look for people in the chat to jump in with, because at least I know those guys are going to talk. They know how to play that game. Let's put it that way. So.
In my situation, I think Firewall is an amazing game, and I'm okay with them only having one mode, because I absolutely love the game. My issues lie with the tracking, with the drifting from the aim controllers, and then the drifting. There's been times where I've pulled the gun up to take aim at an enemy, and because it was spun like 45 degrees to the left, by the time I shook the gun to try to reset it, I was already dead. And a game like Firewall, or any first-person shooter game for that matter, whether it's in VR or flat screen, you need cat-like reflexes. If you see an opponent and you two see each other at the same time, you need like cat-like reflexes to get them first. And you can't get them if you're dealing with tracking issues. And then as far as communicating with people, unfortunately, Firewall has seen its fair share of less than pleasant people. So I've been very selective about when I talk on that game. I won't talk on that game until I know I'm on a team full of good people. I don't care how good the team is if it's full of jerks. and you have some people that take the game seriously, and will get to screaming at you if they feel like you made a mistake. So, but it's still an amazing game, and it has made me selective about when I play it. It's made me selective about when I speak. But I will say this though, they haven't come out, as far as DLC goes, they haven't come out with a bad map yet. I absolutely love the maps that they've come out with lately. So this latest DLC that we're staring at on Tuesday, I expect this to be no different. I think they're going to deliver a great map. But you made a good point, Salsa, that people might only be entrenched in it for a few hours once the No Man's Sky update hits.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's one of those things. I mean, yeah, you can also make the argument that people are interested in their own particular type of games. I know as content creators and stuff like that, we hop around a lot more from game to game than some others. And it's true for a lot of VR content creators, especially than it is for flat screen creators and some other people that are just not even content creators, just normal gamers on the VR side, have been hopping in and out of games a lot more with VR than they have maybe with traditional games where they've been settled on more one game or another in the past. But No Man's Sky, I think, is such a big deal that it's going to take a fair portion, no matter what. No matter what the game is. The only other side I can say is something where I think it's good. The Quest has got a lot coming out. Is that I think people that have bought the Quest aren't necessarily going to have No Man's Sky in their sights at all, because it's just outside of their sights. It's not going to be, if they've bought the Quest, it's not necessarily what the people or the sites they're looking at is going to be talking about all of the time, because they may just be solely focused on the Quest. But everything else in VR, like you said, the PSVR community and the PC VR community, I see, unless they are very dedicated to either the Pavlov contractors esports side or the firewall side on the PSVR, because that is like a big multiplayer game really. With the PSVR side is Firewall. It's certainly one of the most popular ones, and has seen quite a good amount of longevity for what it delivers on. So, but I still think it's going to have problems launching new DLC right at the time when No Man's Sky is going to come out.
In the chat, Uncompetitive's actually come up with an interesting question. He's asking, do VR gamers have short attention spans, or are many VR games shallow?
No.
And,
I have an answer for that, but I definitely want to hear your take on that, Salsa, and then I'll give mine after that, if it's okay.
Okay. I don't think it's that gamers actually have a short attention span. I think it's that the mark is so new, and there are innovations that have come out, and we've kind of like gone and looked and gone, oh, that's interesting. I mean, unfortunately, there is a lot that pulls me back, but I keep on going back to Skyrim VR. I keep on going back into my driving games. I keep on going back to flying games, and I keep on going back to a number of the same games over and over again when they are really good. I keep on going back to Air Taxi as a place to relax, Aircart as a place to relax. I keep on going back into Res Infinite as a place to relax. So not necessarily that it's short attention spans. I think it's that the space that VR occupies and what it provides in new games and new releases and things like that is just generally interesting to see the approaches that are coming out, how different things are engaging and evolving over the sort of time span and kind of like how that's working out with things. So I don't necessarily think it's a case of VR games having short attention spans. I think that there is so much new things coming out constantly to explore that keeps me engaged in wanting to explore those new things and see those new experiences and kind of share those as well as like a streamer, a content creator. It's interesting to see what solutions people are coming up with. That's my general take on it.
In my case, uncompetitive, there are so many experiences in VR, more than you can keep up with. And me, myself, there's so many things that I've been curious about experiencing in real life, but I wasn't able to do it because it was a situation where it was super expensive or super dangerous, like jumping out of a plane and parachuting to the ground. I would never do that in real life, but I am curious about it, and I would definitely experience it in VR. One game that was very, very interesting in the beginning, when PlayStation VR was in its infancy, was Time Machine VR, where you go back in time and to see these prehistoric creatures in the actual size that you think that it might be. And like one of the creatures in that game was called, I think it was called like a platypus, which it basically looked like a crocodile with a shark's fin for a tail. And that thing had to look like it was about 70 feet long. And to be able to come close to that and experience it in VR, it was surreal. It was scary. And then the next day, I find out that a flight simulator might be coming out, and so when Ace Combat 7 came out, I absolutely had to jump on that because I'll never experience what it's like to take off from a deck of a carrier and feel all those G-forces when that plane takes off. But VR brought me the closest that I can get to that experience. And there's so many different experiences that you try something today because something new is coming out tomorrow. It might take you 2 months to come back around to Ace Combat 7. And that's been the case with a lot of the games that I have, is that there's so many new experiences popping up that it takes me forever to come back around to something when I tried it for the first time.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Though, jumping out of I've jumped off cliffs in real life, so jumping out of plane is a good one that I'd love to do. But yeah, I totally agree with you on that as well. Nat?
I mean, the issue that I've had is I have two things. First of all, I have terrible time management. I really do. I suck at it. But
you're not alone.
Yeah, the other thing is, and I'm not complaining here before people say, oh, you're complaining. Being a content creator, being on YouTube does create a problem because you have to create new content. So there's actually some ways where you can't spend a long period of time on a single game. So the comparison I will give is what the game you were talking about, Salsa, is Skyrim. I love Skyrim. I have most probably only put in 15 hours to Skyrim VR, I reckon. I'd say about 15 hours. To give a comparison, when I had it on PS3, I put in over 200 hours. My issue with Skyrim is, okay, I'm going to play Skyrim, but you can't put Skyrim on for 15 minutes.
Nope.
You can't play it for half an hour. If you're going to play Skyrim, it's going to be 3, 4, 5 hours minimum because it's all about the exploration. It's all about the combat. And it's just a case of, like I say, because I've got very poor time management, where do I fit in the 4 or 5 hours? The same with Firewall. You can't really jump into that for 15 minutes or 30 minutes because you might actually be spending 10 minutes waiting to actually jump into a game. As Lincoln says out, if you get a bunch of arseholes on your team, then to be honest, you've then got to jump out of the game so you can hopefully join another team. So again, if you sort of say, "Oh, okay, I want to play Firewall," again, you've got to kind of give it 2-3 hours to play that. So that's an added to the fact that I've got a Nintendo Switch. There's games I want to play on that. Xbox One, there's actually some really good games finally coming out on that. I've got PC games. So as I say, it's a case of, okay, I'm trying to play Jenga, but I'm playing it with balls rather than blocks, and it's just really hard to build up my tower. So that, like I say, I'm not complaining that I'm a content creator because I love doing what I do here on YouTube. But as I say, it does create an issue that I can't dedicate myself too much to certain games because there's always something new around. I mean, to be honest, I've been trying for the past couple of months to try and sort something out, and then obviously me getting ill recently, and that's been 4 weeks now. I'm only just getting over it. It's it kind of knocked me on my arse because it's like, okay, I'd actually written out a list. Okay, on Monday I'm going to be playing either a PS4 or a PSVR game. On Tuesday, because I work late near enough every Tuesday, won't play anything. Wednesday I'm going to play a PC game. Thursday I'm going to play an Oculus Quest game. So I actually did do a little list of, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and that's already been blown to crap. So it is a case of time. Now, admittedly, if I only had a PS4 and PlayStation VR, then I wouldn't actually have nowhere near the issues. And I've got to admit, I've created these issues for myself. I didn't have to buy a Switch. I didn't have to buy an Xbox One. Didn't have to have a gaming PC, but I did. And it's like, well, I want to play this.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to time management. So like I say, if you've only got PlayStation VR and you've got a PS4, then you can kind of dedicate yourself to it. And as Lincoln said, there are channels out there, like Ninja's the perfect example. Now he's gone over to Mixer. What game does he play? He plays Fortnite. That's pretty much it. And the only reason he played Apex Legends is because EA paid him to play it. He's the Fortnite guy. So,
Support Gaming, they're asking a question that I never get tired of answering, and that's he wants to know, so to catch up in the panel, what was your first VR game that made you know that VR gaming is the future on how you play video games now?
Oh, that's easy. Battlezone. I played Battlezone before PlayStation VR came out. I played it at EGX, a gaming event, about a year, just over a year before PlayStation VR came out. And it was my friend timed me. I thought I was in the demo for 3 minutes. I was in the demo for 15 minutes. But it just went by in a thing. But literally playing Battlezone and just looking around and everything, it was just like, okay, this is different. This works, and this is going to be amazing. But it wasn't really Battlezone per se. It was the thought of what was possible beyond that. It was okay, imagine a first-person shooter like this. Imagine a role-playing game. I mean, I've kind of said many times, I would love to see something like a Persona game in VR, be able to summon up a Persona, or in Final Fantasy to summon up a summon. That sort of thing. That's what I see in my mind. And so, I'm kind of upset that I haven't got some of the games I want yet. But then, you play something like, and you mentioned it earlier on about Lincoln, you play Farpoint, and you just, when you drop into that game and then you just stand there and you look up and you look around the world, it takes you a few minutes just to sort of, take your breath in and go, my God, this is unbelievable. And then you go out and kill bugs and stuff. So it's really cool.
It's funny that you say that, because Farpoint was the game for me. This says VR is going to be something special, because that was the game, that introduced the aim controller, and you put it perfectly, 7 degrees. Farpoint was the game for me that showed the potential of VR, and like here in North America, first-person shooters, are the preferred genre. And so after I experienced Farpoint, I said, once we get games like Call of Duty or Battlefield fully playable in VR, that's when VR is going to take over. I think that's when VR, the video game user base, we might be looking at a situation where half of them are VR players. But yeah, that was the wow moment for me, was Farpoint. And Farpoint was the game that showed me how much potential that VR has.
Yeah. For me, there's been a couple of different instances, because you've got the early side of VR where I just went, yeah, wow, that's amazing. And that was back in the 90s with the virtuality stuff when I first put on a headset there. But the current generation, the first two games I got the PSVR for was for Rigs, which I thought is brilliant. The interaction, the way that it works, it's before its time. If it had come along now and was in a complete form, because it's never been finished fully and won't be finished fully, which is such a shame. I think it would do a lot better now if it was releasing now than it did back then. The same goes for the other game that really got me and got like one of my childhood dreams there, which is Eve Valkyrie. I always wanted to jump into a spaceship, shoot out of launch tubes, whatever, go into an amazing space atmosphere and stuff like that, and go, all guns blazing, the excitement of all that, the dodging around things, the debris and everything else like that was absolutely awe-inspiring. It had different bits that took my breath away. So, amazing game as well, Eve Valkyrie on that. I think definitely that's one that really, really did hook me finally and just blew my mind in so many different ways.
I mean, the thing with VR is it's definitely a visceral experience, and I think that's one of the reasons why a horror game works amazingly well in VR. Whether it's Until Dawn Rush of Blood, I forgot the amount of times I screamed at that, or the one that I'd still put. I mean, it was my number one VR game for so long, and even now, I think it still has the ability to still be the number one game, even with all the other games, and that's Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 as a game is a reinvigoration of that franchise. It just brought the franchise back from the dead as far as I was concerned, because I didn't give a rat's ass about Resident Evil 6. I was bored shitless playing that game. Resident Evil 7, just playing it normally, is scary. Resident Evil 7 in VR,
yeah,
you will scream, you will wet yourself, and you need adult diapers to play that game, because you will crap yourself.
I didn't realize how lucky we were with Resident Evil 7, because you had a AAA game fully playable in VR. And after Resident Evil, when I started looking at a lot of these VR games and started seeing that they were short games that didn't have a lot of content, then I was like, where are the AAA games at? So I don't know. You could probably make the case that Resident Evil 7 might have been a little bit before its time.
Oh, it's way before its time. And like I say, it's still a game that anyone that has bought a PlayStation VR is one of the 5 games I would always recommend that somebody buys, because, as I say, it's such a visceral experience. And we were talking earlier about racing. Racing games are a visceral experience.
Yeah.
And that's why I think if you... it's harder for me to talk about it, because obviously I'm not a big racing fan, but obviously from listening to you guys talk that are big racing fans, the experience in VR is more important to you than just a standard racing game.
Yeah.
If you've got the option of 2 games, and say the flat game has got slightly more content, but you've got a game that's still an amazing game, but it's in VR, you'll take the game with slightly less content because it's in VR than the game that has more content non-VR, because it's going to give you such an experience that doesn't match.
You hit a nail on the head there. It's No, okay. It's sort of hitting a nail on the head there. That basically, yeah, a race game. The race never finishes. Races never finish, no matter what, because you always want to go faster. So, having a smaller amount of content that is focused and in VR, where you feel it more, that's where it's at. I recently had a conversation with somebody on somebody else's comments, and they were sort of like about Dirt Rally 2, actually, and Rally, and they're sort of like, well, I can see with the Assetto Corsa and things like those being in VR, but I don't think that Rally game in VR is really a good match. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's an absolute ideal match if ever you
No,
wanted something in
Resident
VR
Evil,
as well.
to add on to what 7 Degrees is saying, Resident Evil was probably the first game that exposed the scary side of VR for me. Well, I said this is too
Oh,
real.
okay.
Horror games are just way too real for me.
You ever played Red Holes?
And I have to admit that I am pretty scared of them. And Resident Evil, when I went in that kitchen and saw how filthy that kitchen was, and looked at that microwave and saw that crow that was inside that microwave, it was just,
yeah.
it was too scary and just way too real.
I think the thing that
So I even and to add another thing where VR is just way too real. A female friend of mine, she came over and I said, I want you to try something. So I put the VR headset on her head and tried ocean depth, where you get lowered into that that cage at the ocean floor, and the shark came and ripped the door off the cage. She climbed up on the couch and like nearly fell off the couch trying to get away from the shark. I mean, it was too real. That was another one that scared me when I first got into VR.
I was wondering as well. See, those are graphically rich, and so I mean the other thing that Resident Evil 7 does is build atmosphere. It's not always about jump scares or anything else like that. It's actually about the build-up of atmosphere, about the creak as you move through, about the wind
sound
blowing, the yeah, exactly, the sounds that's made. It's also about the confinement to these areas, the dark spaces, and what could be going on outside of your sight, but could be in your sight real soon. It's another one where a simpler game that I first played on the Gear VR, which is Dread Halls, which is available on PSVR as well. But Dread Halls has dreadful graphics, really, but it's also another one that builds up that fear of what's going to be around this corner. Hang on, what's sneaking up behind me? Oh, hang on, what was that? And that's one of the things that you don't get from the flat screen experience of that as well. And it's unimaginable to people when you go and say, oh, blah 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 about horror film, this, that, the other, and then you go, look, have you tried that? And they're like, oh, but you can just, it's still just a video game, and you're like, but it's not. When you're in it, it's not. It has
Not in
that
VR,
other
it's not.
aspect. It has that other aspect. It has a touch of reality to it. It's also something that, along the thing that Uncompetitive is talking about here with dialogue, personalities, connection, things like that, is it's talking about speaking to experience, real world experience, or the emotions that you connect to things. VR helps you to connect your emotions to a situation you're in because it has that feeling of a connection to the real world that looking at experiencing through standard hyperreal operandi like a monitor has above looking at a news item, looking at anything else like that. When it's in VR, that hyperreal experience affects you in a much more profound manner. So, Rez lives on the bottom shelf of your freezer. Oh, sorry, Deej. Yeah. It's
Well, I mean,
amazing stuff.
what's his name? Mark Cerny's come out and said the thing that Sony are working on more than anything, and obviously they're working on visuals and things like that, is NPC interactions. When you actually start talking to NPCs, it is in reality, it's not a Skyrim situation, that you'll be able to talk to them. And we saw little bits of that in Blood and Truth,
Yeah.
where there is actual real world interactions, just whether it's shaking your head or saying yes or no. And, sort of like it does actually pick up on small little things like that. So you can, and I think that's one of the things I think you're going to see with PS5 VR games. There's going to be a lot more immersive interactions with, I say, non-player characters. So when you go to an RPG and they're saying, "Hey, let's go down this thing," you'll be able to say, "Get stuff that's too dark. I'm not going to go down there," and it will recognise that you've given it that command, and you'll get a response back. "Come on, you pussy," and stuff like this. So
yeah. But it's an interesting part, and it's a much bigger thing. I think uncompetitive, that what you're coming on to is such a big topic in itself, and we probably won't have time. I think we should actually start looking at wrapping up today. I don't know about you guys,
yeah.
but
Yeah, my son's on the computer right now. So once we wrap this up, I'm gonna grab a bite to eat and then jump on the Quest and play some Dead and Buried.
excellent. I'm going to be resting up a bit. I've got some things to do, hopefully before No Man's Sky drops. I want to check out more of Dirt Rally, of course. I also want to play a lot more again of Assetto Corsa. But I'm also interested to try out Red Matter on the Quest. If I can get hold of a bit of a bigger space, because I want to play some more where I'm not space restricted and can use my actual body to move around a bigger space again, because I do actually like that type of aspect of this as well. That anything big?
No, so I mean, thankfully my illness is broken. I'm getting better. So I'm just hoping by Wednesday that I'm not going to have coughing fits, so I can, say, stream No Man's Sky for a few hours, give my initial impressions of the VR. So I'm going to literally start afresh from the get-go. So at some point I'm going to have to actually put my because I've got it on disc, put my No Man's Sky in, delete my save files, because I've still got save files for it, and like I say, I'll just start afresh, brand new. Depending on what my impressions are of No Man's Sky, I will either buy Red Matter this week, or I'll buy it next week. But obviously next week, or next Sunday, we'll have GT back.
We will.
So we can talk about his holiday. So obviously No Man's Sky is going to be the predominant factor. We might obviously touch on Red Matter as well. But on top of that, we've also got Gamescom next week to look forward to, because that's the week after, and I know GT is actually going to be going.
Yes.
So again, I'm sure next week again will be a very long broadcast, because there's going to be a lot to say about No Man's Sky. But as I say, also our thoughts of what we're going to see from Gamescom, because I think Gamescom is actually going to be a good VR information set up for us.
Yes.
Yeah, Sony's going to be there, so I'm hoping that they're going to have some good VR stuff to show.
Yeah, well, GT will be back. Yes, the Greater Tan one will be back next week. So this will probably all be back to GT's station next week, and he will have the joy of setting everything up, which is a great time saver for me. But we hope to see him soon, and he's going to be off to Gamescom. I might be going to Insomnia here in the UK, so that's around the same time as Gamescom as well. But for everybody here, thanks for joining us all in chat. Don't forget to go and check out their channels, both the YouTube or the Twitch side as well, because live streaming, if you want to get involved with Nat's stuff on the live stream, he live streams more to Twitch than the YouTube, but you can also check his YouTube as well, because that's always welcome. Same with Lincoln. Make sure check the description down below. Of course, my own channel here, if you haven't subscribed, please make sure hit the subscribe button, notification bells. Likes are always welcome, comments are welcome, and we will see you all next week with the return of Gamertag and the return over to Gamertag's channel. Bye for now.
Take care, guys.
See you, everybody. Play some VR games.